My brothers and sisters, how many times have we woken up tired? Not in the body, but in the heart. You open your eyes and before you even sit up, the worries rush in. The mind starts racing, problems, fears, unfinished tasks and unanswered questions. And before the day even begins, you already feel defeated. But let me tell you something very important. Islam teaches us that the morning is not just a time, it is a training ground. The first moments after you wake up are powerful. That is when the heart is soft, the mind is open, and the soul is receptive. If you give those moments to the world will exhaust you. But if you give those moments to Allah, Allah will strengthen you. Real morning mind training does not begin with noise, screens, or stress. It begins with remembrance. When you wake up and say, Alhamdulillah, hidadi ahyana ba'da ma amatana, you are not just saying words. You are teaching your mind a truth. I was given another chance. Many went to sleep and never woke up. You did. That alone should change your mindset. My brothers and sisters, the problem is not that life is heavy. The problem is that we try to carry life without Allah. The moment you remember Him, the weight does not disappear, but your strength increases. Train your mind in the morning to say, Allah is in control, not me, because anxiety comes from thinking you must control everything. Peace comes from knowing you never were in control to begin with. Start your morning with gratitude before complaint. Even if life is difficult, there is always something to thank Allah for. You are breathing, you can see, you can hear, you can still make dua. Gratitude silences shaitan because shaitan thrives on negativity and despair. And then, my brothers and sisters, make dua, not rush dua, not distracted dua. Speak to Allah like someone who truly believes He is listening. Place your fears in front of Him before you face the world. When you do that, your mind learns a powerful lesson. I am not alone. This is real mental training. You don't need hours. You need consistency. Even 5 sincere minutes every morning can rewire how you think, how you react, and how you respond to hardship. Islam is not about extremes. It is about balance and consistency. And finally, trust Allah with the outcomes. Do your best, work hard, be honest, but leave the results to Him. When the heart trusts Allah, the mind rests. So tomorrow morning, don't rush into the chaos. Pause. Remember Allah. Thank Him. Speak to Him. Trust Him. Because when your day begins with Allah, no matter what happens after, your heart will remain steady. May Allah train our minds, calm our hearts, and bless our mornings with light and clarity. Ameen. When you open your eyes in the morning, the very first decision you make, often without realizing it, is who you give your heart to. Many people wake up and immediately reach for their phones, their worries, their schedules, their fears. Before the feet touch the ground, the mind is already running ahead into stress and pressure. But a believer is taught something far more powerful. Begin the day with Allah, not the world. This is not a slogan. It is a way of training the heart to stay firm, no matter what the day brings. When you begin your morning with the remembrance of Allah, you are reminding yourself of a reality that the world constantly tries to make you forget. You are not self-sufficient. You are not in control. You are dependent on the one who created you and gave you another chance to live. Just waking up is a mercy. The heart that recognizes this early in the morning starts the day already humble, already grateful, already connected. The world is loud. It demands your attention immediately. Messages, responsibilities, deadlines, expectations, they all rush toward you the moment you wake up. If the world gets you first, it will dictate your mood, your pace, and your peace. But if Allah gets you first, the world loses its power over your heart. You may still face challenges, but they will not shake you in the same way, because your foundation was set before the storm arrived. Beginning the day with Allah does not require long rituals or complicated routines. It begins with awareness, a simple moment of stillness, a quiet Alhamdulillah. A sincere acknowledgement that your life, your time, and your strength come from Him alone. This small act trains the mind to slow down and the heart to soften. It tells your soul, you are safe because Allah is with you. When a person remembers Allah early in the morning, they carry that remembrance into their actions. Their speech becomes more mindful. Their reactions become calmer. Their decisions become wiser. This is because the heart is anchored. A heart that is anchored does not panic easily, does not despair quickly, and does not lose hope when things go wrong. It understands that whatever unfolds during the day has already passed through the knowledge and wisdom of Allah. Many people chase motivation, productivity, and focus, yet overlook the simplest source of all strength. True clarity does not come from planning alone. It comes from purpose. When you start your morning remembering Allah, you remember why you exist. You remember that your efforts are acts of worship, that your patience is seen, and that your struggles are not wasted. This transforms even ordinary tasks into meaningful actions. Beginning the day with Allah also protects the heart from comparison and jealousy. When you are connected to your Creator, you are less concerned with what others have and more content with what you have been given. You understand that provision, success, and timing are all written with wisdom. This removes the pressure to compete and replaces it with trust. Most importantly, starting the day with Allah teaches the heart reliance. You learn day after day that you cannot face life alone, and you were never meant to. When you place your trust in Allah at the beginning of the day, you are saying, I will do my best, but I leave the outcome to you. This mindset brings peace that no external success can provide. So when the morning comes, pause before the world rushes in. Give those first moments to Allah. Let your heart breathe, let your mind settle, and let your soul remember its source. A day that begins with Allah may not be free of problems, but it will be filled with strength, purpose, and a calm that carries you through whatever lies ahead. Every single day begins with a thought, and that first thought is far more powerful than most people realize. The mind, when it wakes up, is like fresh ground. Whatever you plant in it first will shape what grows throughout the day. If the first thought is fear, the day feels heavy. If it is anger, the heart stays tense. But if it is awareness of Allah, trust and intention, then even a difficult day becomes manageable. This is why controlling the first thought in the morning is not a small matter. It is the foundation upon which the entire day is built. When you wake up, your mind immediately looks for direction. If you do not guide it, it will wander to worries, regrets, and anxieties. It may replay yesterday's pain or rush ahead to tomorrow's uncertainties. Islam teaches us to gently but firmly redirect that first thought. Instead of allowing the mind to run wild, you train it to pause and remember purpose. A simple remembrance, a short dua, or a moment of gratitude can interrupt a negative cycle before it gains strength. Many people believe they are victims of their thoughts, but in reality, thoughts can be trained. The morning is the easiest time to do this because the mind has not yet been cluttered by noise and distraction. When you consciously choose your first thought, you are telling your mind who is in charge. Over time, this practice reshapes your emotional responses. You become less reactive, less overwhelmed, and more grounded, even when things do not go as planned. The first thought also influences your attitude toward challenges. If you wake up thinking today is going to be difficult, the mind will search for evidence to prove that belief. Every inconvenience will feel like confirmation. But if you wake up thinking, Allah will help me through whatever comes, the mind looks for strength instead of weakness. The challenges remain the same, but your interpretation of them changes, and that changes everything. Islam reminds us that the heart finds rest in the remembrance of Allah. This rest does not mean the absence of problems, it means the presence of stability. When the first thought of the day is remembrance, the heart settles and the mind learns that it does not need to panic. This calm becomes a reference point. Throughout the day, when stress rises, the mind naturally returns to that initial state of trust and remembrance. Controlling the first thought also protects you from negativity that comes from the outside world. The world is quick to tell you what you lack, what you should fear, and what you should chase. If you allow these messages to enter your mind first thing in the morning, they shape your self-worth and priorities. But when you begin the day with intention and remembrance, you decide what matters before the world tries to decide for you. This practice is not about denying emotions or pretending everything is perfect. It is about framing reality correctly. You acknowledge your responsibilities, your struggles, and your goals, but you place them within the understanding that Allah is greater than all of them. This perspective keeps the mind balanced. You work hard, but you do not despair. You plan carefully, but you do not obsess. You strive, but you trust. Over time, controlling the first thought becomes a habit. The mind learns to naturally turn toward hope instead of fear, gratitude instead of complaint, and reliance instead of panic. This is how a single moment in the morning can reshape an entire life. When you shape the first thought, you shape the tone of the day. And when the days change, the direction of your life changes with them. The human mind has a natural tendency to notice what is missing before it sees what is present. From the moment we wake up, it is easy to think about what we do not have, what went wrong yesterday, or what might go wrong today. Complaints can form silently in the heart before the day has even begun. This is why training the mind to choose gratitude before complaint is one of the most powerful habits a believer can develop, especially in the morning. It sets the emotional and spiritual tone for everything that follows. Gratitude in Islam is not denial of hardship, it is recognition of reality in its full balance. You may be struggling, but you are still breathing. You may be tired, but your heart is still beating. You may feel lost, but you still have access to Allah through dua. When the morning begins with gratitude, the mind is taught to see blessings alongside difficulties, not instead of them. This creates emotional stability and protects the heart from falling into constant dissatisfaction. When a person complains first, the mind narrows its focus. It becomes trapped in negativity, magnifying problems and shrinking blessings. Even small inconveniences feel overwhelming. Gratitude, on the other hand, expands perspective. It reminds the heart that Allah has already given much, even before you ask for more. This mindset does not make you passive, it makes you grounded. You work to improve your situation, but you do not lose your peace in the process. Starting the morning with gratitude also invites barakah into the day. When you acknowledge Allah's favors, you strengthen your relationship with Him. Gratitude is an act of worship, and worship brings closeness. This closeness brings calm. A heart that feels close to Allah is less anxious about outcomes and more content with effort. Even when the day is difficult, it carries a sense of meaning rather than frustration. Complaining first thing in the morning often leads to a cycle of negativity. The mind begins searching for reasons to justify its dissatisfaction. Traffic feels worse, people seem more irritating, and minor setbacks feel personal. Gratitude interrupts this cycle. When you begin the day by thanking Allah, your mind becomes more patient and forgiving. You are less likely to react harshly because your heart is already softened by appreciation. Gratitude also protects against envy and comparison. When the heart is focused on what Allah has already given, it has less space to dwell on what others appear to have. The morning sets the tone for this as well. If you wake up appreciating your own blessings, you are less likely to measure your worth against someone else's life. This creates inner contentment that is not dependent on external validation. Choosing gratitude before complaint trains the soul to trust Allah's wisdom. You may not understand why certain things are delayed or taken away, but gratitude says, I trust that Allah knows what I need better than I do. This trust brings peace, especially in times of uncertainty. It allows you to face challenges without bitterness and to accept outcomes without resentment. Over time, this practice reshapes your inner dialogue. The mind learns to look for mercy before hardship, lessons before loss, and hope before despair. This does not mean that pain disappears, but it no longer dominates your emotional state. Gratitude becomes a lens through which life is viewed, making even ordinary moments feel meaningful. When the morning begins with gratitude, the day feels lighter, not because problems vanish, but because the heart is strengthened. Complaints may still arise, but they no longer lead. Gratitude takes the first place, and in doing so, it anchors the soul in peace, resilience, and a quiet confidence that whatever lies ahead is already held within the wisdom and mercy of Allah. Many people, they search for ways to calm their minds, reduce anxiety, and regain control over their thoughts, yet they overlook the most powerful form of mental training that exists. Dua is not just a request, it is a conversation with the one who controls all affairs. When a believer turns to dua in the morning, they are not escaping reality. They are preparing the mind to face it with strength, clarity, and trust. This is why dua is the strongest form of mental training, especially at the start of the day. The human mind becomes overwhelmed when it tries to carry everything alone. Worries pile up, fears multiply, and the heart feels heavy before the day has even begun. Dua teaches the mind a different way to function. It gently reminds you that you were never meant to hold every burden by yourself. When you place your concerns before Allah in the early hours, the mind learns to release what it cannot control. This release is not weakness, it is wisdom. Morning dua reshapes how the mind processes problems. Instead of asking, how will I manage all of this? The heart learns to say, Allah is sufficient for me. This shift changes your emotional response to challenges. The problems may still exist, but they no longer dominate your thoughts. You move forward with a sense of support, knowing that the one who hears you has power over every outcome. Dua also trains the mind to be hopeful. When you raise your hands and speak to Allah, you are affirming belief in His mercy and ability. Even if your situation has not changed yet, your mindset begins to change immediately. Hope enters the heart, and hope is a powerful stabilizer. A hopeful mind is less anxious, more patient, and better equipped to handle uncertainty. Making dua in the morning builds emotional resilience. It reminds you that setbacks are not signs of abandonment, but part of a greater plan. When the heart is connected to Allah through dua, it becomes less fragile. Criticism hurts less, delays feel lighter, and disappointments do not break you in the same way. This resilience is not built overnight. It is developed through consistent, sincere conversations with Allah. Dua also brings focus and clarity. When you speak to Allah about your intentions, your fears, and your goals, you organize your thoughts naturally. The mind becomes calmer because it is no longer cluttered with unspoken worries. You gain a sense of direction, not because every detail is clear, but because your trust is placed in the right place. Some people think dua is only for times of crisis, but using dua as daily mental training changes everything. When you make dua before the problems arise, you approach the day proactively rather than reactively. You are mentally prepared to face challenges with patience and humility. This preparedness reduces impulsive reactions and emotional exhaustion. Morning dua also strengthens self-awareness. When you ask Allah for guidance, forgiveness, or strength, you acknowledge your own limitations. This honesty keeps the ego in check and opens the heart to growth. You become more conscious of your actions, your words, and your intentions throughout the day. Over time, the mind becomes conditioned to return to Allah whenever stress appears. Dua becomes a reflex rather than a last resort. This is the true power of using dua as mental training. It creates a cycle of remembrance, trust, and calm that carries you through both ease and difficulty. When the morning begins with dua, the heart is lighter, the mind is steadier, and the soul feels supported. You step into the day knowing that you have already spoken to the one who controls it. This awareness does not remove challenges, but it gives you the confidence to face them, knowing that you are never truly alone. Many people believe that meaningful change requires dramatic effort, long hours, and intense bursts of motivation. They wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, or an overwhelming surge of energy to transform their lives. Islam teaches us a different and far more sustainable approach: consistency over intensity. Real growth does not come from doing a lot once in a while. It comes from doing a little regularly with sincerity. This principle is especially powerful when applied to the morning, where small, consistent actions can quietly reshape the mind and heart. The problem with intensity is that it often depends on emotion. When motivation is high, effort feels easy. But when motivation fades, intensity collapses. Consistency, on the other hand, does not rely on how you feel. It is built on discipline and intention. When you commit to small acts every morning, you remove the pressure to be perfect and replace it with the habit of showing up. Over time, this habit becomes stronger than mood. A few minutes of remembrance, a short dua, or a brief moment of reflection each morning may seem insignificant, but these moments compound. Just as drops of water can shape stone over time, consistent small actions shape the heart. The mind learns stability rather than fluctuation. You no longer experience extreme spiritual highs followed by long periods of neglect. Instead, you develop a steady connection that carries you through different phases of life. Consistency also protects against burnout. Intense routines often begin with enthusiasm and end in exhaustion. When expectations are too high, failure feels inevitable, and guilt follows. Small, consistent practices are manageable even on difficult days. They create a sense of accomplishment rather than pressure. This makes it easier to continue even when life feels overwhelming. In the morning, consistency teaches the mind patience. You are reminded that growth is a process, not an event. You may not feel immediate results, but the heart is being trained quietly. Over weeks and months, you begin to notice subtle changes, increased calm, better emotional control, and a stronger sense of trust in Allah. These changes last because they were built gradually. Consistency also strengthens sincerity. When acts are small and regular, they are less likely to be driven by ego or the desire to impress. They become personal moments between you and Allah. This sincerity deepens the impact of each action. Even brief remembrance becomes meaningful when it is done daily with awareness. Small, consistent efforts in the morning also make it easier to return after mistakes. If you miss a day, it does not feel like failure, it feels like an interruption. You resume without guilt because the routine is gentle and forgiving. This mindset encourages perseverance rather than self-criticism. Over time, consistency creates identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who remembers Allah in the morning, someone who starts the day with intention. This NT shapes your choices throughout the day. You become more mindful of your actions because they align with who you believe yourself to be. The beauty of consistency is that it fits into any life. No matter how busy or unpredictable your schedule is, a few minutes each morning is achievable. This accessibility removes excuses and builds confidence. You learn that progress is not reserved for those with perfect routines, but for those who are willing to take small steps regularly. When the morning is built on consistency rather than intensity, the heart remains steady. You are not chasing motivation, you are cultivating discipline. You are not overwhelmed by expectations, you are guided by intention. In this way, small daily efforts become powerful tools for lasting change, shaping the mind and heart gently but firmly, day after day. One of the greatest sources of stress in a person's life is the desire to control outcomes. The mind constantly tries to predict, manage, and secure results, believing that peace will come once everything goes according to plan. Islam teaches a more liberating truth. Your responsibility is effort, not outcome. When you truly trust Allah with the results and focus on sincere effort, the heart finds rest and the mind becomes lighter, especially when this understanding is planted early in the morning. From the moment the day begins, the mind often rushes ahead, worrying about what might happen and how things will turn out. This habit drains energy before any action has even been taken. Trusting Allah with outcomes breaks this cycle. It reminds the heart that the future is not unknown to Allah, even if it is unknown to you. When this trust is established in the morning, the mind approaches the day with calm determination rather than anxious urgency. Focusing on effort teaches responsibility without obsession. You are encouraged to work hard, plan wisely, and act with integrity, but without tying your peace to results you cannot control. When effort becomes the focus, you measure success by sincerity and consistency, not by immediate rewards. This perspective prevents disappointment from turning into despair and success from turning into arrogance. Trusting Allah also reshapes how the mind handles failure. When things do not go as planned, the heart does not collapse. Instead, it asks, "What can I learn?" rather than, "Why did this happen to me?" This mindset builds resilience. You understand that setbacks are not signs of rejection, but part of a journey designed with wisdom. This understanding gives you the strength to continue even when outcomes are delayed or different from what you expected. In the morning, placing outcomes in Allah's hands creates emotional freedom. You begin the day knowing that your worth is not dependent on results. This reduces fear of judgment, fear of loss, and fear of making mistakes. When fear loosens its grip, clarity increases. You make better decisions because they are guided by principle rather than panic. Trusting Allah with outcomes also deepens sincerity. When you stop chasing validation and visible success, your actions become more authentic. You work because it is right, not because it guarantees recognition. This sincerity brings barakah, even if it is not immediately visible. Over time, you notice that effort done with trust often leads to results beyond what you imagine, though sometimes in forms you did not expect. This trust does not mean passivity. Islam does not teach abandoning effort in the name of reliance. True trust combines action with surrender. You tie your camel and then place your heart at ease. In the morning, this balance sets the tone for the day. You move forward with purpose, yet remain flexible and patient when plans change. When all you times are left to Allah, gratitude becomes easier. Success is seen as a gift, not an entitlement. Failure is seen as a lesson, not a punishment. This perspective keeps the heart humble in ease and patient in hardship. Both states become opportunities for growth rather than sources of anxiety. Over time, the mind learns a powerful lesson. Peace does not come from controlling life, but from trusting the one who controls it. When this lesson is practiced daily, especially in the morning, stress loses much of its power. You still care, you still strive, but you no longer carry the heavy burden of trying to manage what was never yours to manage. When the day begins with trust and effort, the heart walks lightly. You face responsibilities with confidence, accept outcomes with grace, and move through life with a quiet strength rooted in reliance on Allah. As we reach the end of this reminder, remember that real morning mind training is not complicated, loud, or exhausting. It is gentle, intentional, and deeply rooted in your relationship with Allah. When you begin your day with remembrance instead of rush, gratitude instead of complaint, dua instead of anxiety, consistency instead of extremes, and trust instead of control, your mind is trained in the most powerful way possible. Life will still test you. Challenges will still come. Some days will feel heavy. But when your mornings are anchored in Allah, your heart will not be easily shaken. You will move through the day with calm, clarity, and purpose, knowing that you are supported by the one who controls all affairs. So do not underestimate the first moments of your day. Protect them, use them wisely, give them to Allah, and you will see how even ordinary mornings begin to transform your mindset, your actions, and your entire life. May Allah bless our mornings, strengthen our hearts, and grant us peace through remembrance and trust. Ameen. Thank you, everyone.